Hello, good gentles all. My name is Mica Pointer. I am a graduate employee at the costume shop at the University of Oregon, and today I'm going to be working with you on securing your hook, eye, and bar closures for your sewing project. Now, there are several different sizes of hook, eye, and bar closures. But what is important is making sure that you have the same size hook, eye, or bar to go with each other, because nothing's worse than getting everything done up and then realizing that your hook is too small to work with your eye, or vice versa. And that will all depend on what kind of project you're doing, how robust and strong a hook and eye you need, and also determining whether you're going to use an eye or a bar also depends on what you want your finished product to be like. For example, using a hook and eye is mostly going to be for when you want your two pieces of fabric that you're closing to just abut right against one another. So not having any gap between them, not having any overlap, but they're just gonna kiss right next to each other. Having a hook and bar, on the other hand, is typically going to be for when there is going to be some overlap for your projects. So if you've been following along with some of our previous videos or working as part of the class that this was made for, you're going to be having your sewing project right here. And we're going to be working with our closures mostly on either end of the hemmed sections here. So as such, yes, there is going to be a little bit of tunneling for this, so I'm going to get my visual aid cross-section diagram done up over here. But because we're mostly going to be working with them this way, with the fold being on the top side here, I'm going to be drawing it upside down from what it's previously been. So imagining that right here is the right side of the fabric going in. This is the hem for the 1/2 inch fold. This is the 1/4 inch. This being the inside or the wrong side of the fabric. Okay? And no matter what size you have to work with, it's the same basic method for where you're going to be placing your stitches and how you're going to be securing it down. Now, because this is a closure, I will be having double-threaded needle. This has already been waxed and double-threaded, so there again is 2 lengths, kind of once from fingertip to nose, and then again from fingertip to nose, so that we have 2 threads that we're going to be working with there. Those are brought down and knotted together right here at the end. So, we are ready to begin. I'm going to be putting my hook right about here, and we want it to be just about 1/8 of an inch down from where the fold is. Now, starting these out can be a little tricky because they're going to want to kind of slide around and be super rambunctious, but once you get the first few stitches in that hold it in place, then it'll start sitting nice and pretty for you. Now, I typically begin with my stitches going in on the outside of where these little loops are, and then coming out on the inside. I just find that it's easier to get the right angle for getting the needle through if I'm starting from the outside, coming out on the inside. Okay? So, once again, we want, because we're working on the wrong side of the fabric, and we want things to be nice and clean and pretty on the right side, we will be tunneling these stitches inside of the fold there. We won't be going to the outside until we get to one very particular stitch in order to hold all the layers secure. So there again, nothing showing. We're going to pull that right round, and it will be 5 stitches all together for each loop. So this is stitch 1. This will be stitch 2. Again, making sure nothing's poking out. Here we are. And for me, I usually have stitch 3 be the one that goes all the way through the layers, just because that's the middle stitch. You can have this be the very first stitch that you do. You can have it be the very last stitch that you do. As long as you have one stitch that makes a very small pick of a few threads from the outside. Okay. Oh, tried to correct myself and I ruined it. Just a few stitches. Come on. I know you want to behave. There we are. Yes, yes, good. There we are, nice and subtle. And in a perfect world where we have thread that matches whatever project we have, that'll help it blend in nice and easy. And you notice here how even though we have a few stitches in, it's starting to get a little bit of wild and crazy play on itself right there. That's why it's always important to have a finger just kind of pinching it together, trying and hold it in place. You can also take a pencil or some kind of marking tool and just put a few little dots where you want your loops to sit specifically, but always just making sure and double check that it's not starting to wander or creep around differently. And whoopsies, throwing everything around. And if you notice on this left loop here, maybe I'll try and zoom it in so you can see, there's a little bit of a gap where that wire doesn't quite meet where the center part is. Just be kind of cautious so you're not stitching altogether too close for that, because it could have a tendency to slip into that gap and come off. So just being mindful and conscientious of that. So that was our third stitch for that. I'll do 2 more. Again, these are tunneling stitches that will be going between the layers. We already did our 1 stitch going all the way through, so that way there's not any kind of sliding around between the layers, because if we do all of our stitches on this 1 layer here, then that is going to want to pull up and shift around in spite of this layer here. So having the 1 stitch that goes all the way through keeps those all secure. Okay? So this is going to be stitch number 4. And then stitch number 5. Okay. Now, yes, I've got everything tunneled. I like to keep my projects as nice and pretty on the inside as much as I do on the outside, ignoring this little tuft of knot that's hanging out right there. So when going from one loop to the other, I typically tend to tunnel that in between. So that means I'll be going in tunneling so that I'll be coming up in the middle of that other eye. Let me see. Oh, nope. Nope, a little more. Okay. So I tunneled over and, okay, that was not quite in the right place. So yes, you see how it came up super crooked like that? I was not paying attention. I thought it was in one place, but it turns out it was deceiving me. So, let me see. Well, so I'll try just putting it back through and tunneling a little lower. Oh yeah, that was all kinds of crooked. Oh man. Woo-hoo. Okay. Okay. That's a little better. Okay. Yes, so now I'm going to be working from here, stitching from the outside towards the inside. Again, we want to do 5 more stitches around there. These ones will be tunneling. Tunneling 1, so you see none of those showing through. Tunneling number 2, not showing through. This third one here, I'm going to have put all the way through. I'm going to try and center that just right at the apex of the curve there. And this is going to be just a little itty bitty smidgen of a bite, so just catching only a few threads, so we have as little of this blue thread showing as possible, and then coming up on the inside of that eye. Okay. There we go. Nice and subtle. Okay. Making sure it's not getting too crooked on me. I was paying attention to that. And it'll be 2 more tunneled or slipped stitches. Oh, come on. Okay. We're good. There's one. And this one will be 2. Now, this is all well and good, but if you notice, there's still a little bit of shifting that's happening, and it's tending to want to pop out where that kind of apex of the hook is. So in order to keep that secure, we're going to be putting a stitch just right inside of the hook there. So let me see. I'll try and point a little more precisely with my pencil here. But if you see just right inside there, there's that little bump. That bump is kind of a spring sort of thing. So when you get your eye or your bar, it kind of clicks into the hook. The spring helps keep it secure and keeps it from just slipping right out. If you're having a difficult time getting your hook into your eye or your bar, one, check to make sure that it's the right size. Again, it could be that the hook is too small for going over the thickness or the gauge of the eye or bar that you have. Or it could be where the hook has gotten dented and bent a little too close to the spring, which you can alleviate with just some needle nose pliers, getting that bent back into place. But where we're going to be putting our stitch to secure the top part of the hook is just between the bump and the top curve of the hook here. So in that kind of flat area just right inside, we're going to be putting, again, 5 stitches just to keep that tight. And yep, I'm going to be tunneling from the last stitch down here up to the hook. So let's hope that I can get that nice and easy and well behaved for us, so I don't have to do it over again. Let's see. Okay. Making sure that it's sitting nice. I want it to come up somewhere right here or so. Okay. So I'll be wanting to put it down here. Coming up a little bit further, a little bit further. Maybe here. Yes, that looks good. Oh, wait. Actually jumping to the other side of the hook because it's more comfortable for me if I'm coming in on this side and out on that side, just because that's what's more efficient for me to work. Again, I am left-handed, so if you folks find a more comfortable way of doing it, whatever works best for you. Yes, there we are. Let's give that one a try. And yep, nothing's showing from there. Perfect. Okay. Yes. Excellent. Yeah, so I came out on that far side. I'm going to be slipping it under the hook, just right inside those layers there. Gonna be going down on this side, tunneling to the opposite side, coming out, without getting everything all tangled together. Oh boy. Yes, that looks like it's sitting. Nice and comfy. Excellent. So that was stitch 1. I'll need 4 more stitches. Again, for all the closures, it's 5 stitches. This is number 2. And for 3, there again, just a nice, subtle, inconspicuous little pick of only a few threads from the right side of the fabric. Going back up, there we go. And if you put your thread in kind of a diagonal, you can have that pick be at right of the center of the hook and then come out just over at the side. Okay. There we go. Just a little triangle of a few specks. So that was our stitch number 3. So we'll need 2 more and then we'll be good for tying off our hook. Oops. Last one. Here we are. Oops, there again, without getting things caught and tangled in with each other. Yes, yes, yes. There we are. All right. And I'll be tying off on this side. Make sure everything's nice and secure. I'll just be taking a little anchor stitch of this top layer of fabric. Not going through to the opposite side. Excellent. Make sure and keep checking that. We don't want any wayward stitches wandering away and fighting against us. Just going once, twice through the loop, and pulling taut. There you go. If you want to be extra fancy and keep things super clean, you can also tunnel the tail of that knot by slipping it between the layers of fabric, making sure nothing is showing either side. Here we go, getting our trusty snips. And here. There we are. So, that is our hook, nice and secured. Be sure and join us for parts 2 and 3 as we get to the eye and the bar. But I hope this was useful. If you have any questions or need any clarification, my email is found on the University of Oregon website under Graduate Students for Theater Arts. Thank you for joining me, and I wish you happy sewing.